Today is July 8th, 2020. It is 1:03 in the afternoon, and this is a special meeting of the members of the State Liquor Authority. Present today in Albany, and can be seen on video, is Chairman Bradley. Joining us by phone are Commissioners Fan. Commissioner Fan, could you acknowledge you're there?
Yes, I'm here.
And Commissioner Ford, can you acknowledge that you're there?
I'm here.
Okay. Also present in the Albany office are Deputy Commissioner of Licensing Roberts and myself, Secretary of the Authority Donahue. Joining us by phone is Councilor Meyerhoff. The only items on today's calendar, the first item is a request from Council's office regarding New York OP 1318058 White Horse Hospitality LLC. It's a request for an emergency summary order of suspension. And with that, I'll turn the matter over to Council.
Thank you, Tom. Good afternoon, members of the authority. This is a request for an emergency order of suspension to White Horse Hospitality LLC, doing business as the White Horse Tavern. The licensee's principal. The licensee's principal is Eitan Sugarman. This is a long-standing New York City institution that was recently, purchased by Mr. Sugarman. He was issued a license in October of 2019 to operate. The bar restaurant is on 567 Hudson Street in the West Village in New York. Mr. Sugarman is an experienced restaurateur. He has other licenses currently and in the past. That's in fact why this is such a surprise that we have to get to this point with this particular licensee. The White Horse Tavern over the last several weeks has been repeatedly violating the multiple executive orders related to the COVID-19 pandemic, causing the police and SLA investigators and task force to visit the place repeatedly, warn Mr. Sugarman directly that he needs to get into compliance, and he has refused to comply. He has done nothing to comply. The first incident that we are aware of, and some of these the authority only learned about after pressing the police department for earlier records, it goes back to June 6th. On June 6th, the police received several complaints of overcrowding outside the location, blocking of the sidewalk, loud music like a street party, no social distancing. That prompted them to go to the location on June 9th at about 9:40 p.m. A supervising sergeant and NYPD police officer observed 50 to 100 people standing in front of the premises, consuming alcohol, blocking the sidewalk. There was an unlicensed bar set up on the sidewalk serving alcoholic beverages without food, a large speaker playing loud music. The sergeant and the officer gave a warning, a verbal warning to a man known as Sal, who had previously identified himself as the manager, and to Eitan Sugarman himself. Verbal warning about unlawful conduct. So this is June 9th. Phase 1, no outdoor service permitted, and an outdoor party going on, essentially. No summonses were issued at the time, and the matter was not referred to the State Liquor Authority. 4 or 5 days later, June 13th, a Saturday at 10:05 p.m., police officers from the 6th Precinct observed another crowd in front of the premises, 50 to 100 people, same thing, blocking the sidewalk and the bike lane. The police attempted to disperse the crowd with a loudspeaker, ultimately was successful with that. A legal bar was still set up, speaker playing, and when the police confronted Sal, the manager, he just argued with them that the bar was doing everything that was asked of it. Again, no summons, no referral to the SLA. That was a Saturday, June 13th. Sunday, June 14th, I think by this time there had been some information reaching the SLA that there were complaints about this place. An SLA investigator conducted surveillance on June 14th, purchased a drink at the outside bar containing whiskey and juice, did not have to purchase any food, consumed the alcohol, served in a paper cup with a plastic lid, standing directly in front of the premises next to the service area. There were 3 tables and chairs in front of the premise. This was which had patrons who were drinking and socializing. This was at a time that no outside service was permitted in the New York City area. They were still in phase 1. After the visit, the investigators spoke to Mr. Sugarman, informed him that they received the complaint the State Liquor Authority had, that there isn't compliance here. He's not allowed to serve alcohol without food. Gave him a warning. I believe at that time the SLA investigator had not known about the previous visits from the New York City Police Department. But after giving the warning, he returned. The SLA returned to actually the New York State Task Force, which was working with the State Liquor Authority on enforcement matters at the time, returned on Saturday, June 20th, and found at 5:55 p.m., so late afternoon, broad daylight, 67 patrons standing in front of the licensed premise drinking and not social distancing. I believe that incident, the Saturday, June 20th incident, prompted the State Liquor Authority to issue its first notice of pleading to the White Horse Tavern for these violations, and that notice of pleading is out and served. Concerned that this was going to continue, both the police and the task force and the SLA returned the following weekend and the weekend after that. On Friday, June 26th, phase 2 had begun in New York City. A 6th precinct community affairs detective and an officer met with Mr. Sugarman and asked him about what he was doing to respond to all these community complaints about noise and social distancing. They gave him written guidance regarding the seating arrangements that were permitted. According to these officers, Sugarman responded in substance that he was not responsible for supervising the patrons outside of his premises, and that was what happened on the 26th at 5:05 p.m. A few hours later, an SLA investigator conducting surveillance at 7:51 p.m. observed 60 people in front of the building. So this is literally hours after the police were there, advising Mr. Sugarman of what the guidance required. 20 people standing on the sidewalk in front of the premise, socializing, drinking. The investigator also observed a large wooden platform on the roadway. Half of the platform was in the parking lane, and the other half extended onto the left turn traffic lane. By this time, New York City had begun phase 2 and had conducted an application process where restaurants could serve outside as long as they submitted an application. But that application process was very specific about exactly how service could take place. And you certainly couldn't have service or a platform in a traffic turning lane where live vehicular traffic is supposed to go. Clear violation. That was on June 26th. It was first observed. And in addition to that, the people who were drinking there, standing, were not social distancing. On June 27th, police officers Houlihan and Corvo from the 6th police precinct responded to more complaints. The 311 call was approximately 10:30. Saw a huge crowd there, approximately 100 patrons, drinking in public, standing on the sidewalk. Same outdoor speaker was playing music loudly, attracting people and creating a nightclub atmosphere. Mr. Sugarman was present. Lieutenant Cuervo spoke to him and told him that this premises has the highest number of noise complaints in the 6th precinct of any licensed premise, that the tavern was being monitored, and Sugarman denied to Lieutenant Cuervo he was using an outdoor speaker. Lieutenant Cuervo then responded he was looking right at the illegal sound device. Apparently don't believe your lying eyes, was Mr. Sugarman's position. Sugarman is noted by the police to have been combative and contrary verbally with Lieutenant Cuervo, denying any responsibility, again, for actions that take place outside his premises. At that point, Mr. Sugarman was issued a summons. Sergeant Houlihan returned later that evening for a compliance check 2 hours later and found a large crowd drinking in front of the place just 2 hours after the summons had been served. On Thursday, July 2nd, an SLA investigator made a visit, undisclosed purchase of premixed sangria from the bar outside, Philip Bar outside, drank it on the sidewalk. He then disclosed his identity and then asked for records, etc. Records were insufficient. They've been charged with that as well. We'll get to that. On July 3rd, Friday, July 3rd, 8:50 p.m., an SLA investigator working undercover purchased red sangria, served from a premixed jug, wasn't required to get any food, did not observe any waiter service in this outdoor seating area, and observed many people standing without wearing masks. Saturday, July 4th, at 11:55, Detective Jackson of the NYPD took photographs showing large numbers of people standing outside on the outside drinking. This is particularly important because under the New York City's Move Outside plan, outdoor service had to end at 11 p.m., so they were violating that as well. So what we have here is a series of events and warnings and a licensee's principal who simply took the position that he is not obligated to comply with the guidance. He has been quoted in a couple of publications saying just that. There's a July 2020 copy of Westview News, it's a West Village newspaper, where he said, it's entitled White Horse Tavern Struggles with Compliance. Sugarman claims to have been unprepared for the influx of traffic and to not know how people expect him to enforce these social distancing requirements personally. There was a New York Times article, I believe it was yesterday, entitled "The Pandemic Isn't Over. New Yorkers are acting as if it were," in which Mr. Sugarman is quoted as saying, "I'm not a bouncer. I'm not a police officer. I don't have the right to tell them what to do when they take their stuff and go," he said. And then the article says in parentheses, "Perhaps customers are making assumptions based on the bar's Instagram post. Quote, our patio is open," with several exclamation points. So I'm not suggesting that the members rely on these press accounts, but they are consistent, and his statements are consistent with his conduct in refusing to adhere to warnings. And it really is a shame when a writer for the New York Times sees how obvious it is that he is wrong in concluding that he's not responsible for this, when a licensee, an experienced restaurateur with multiple warnings, doesn't see it that way. So based on all of this and the police records that we've received and the SLA investigative reports, we served the second, we've commenced. I don't know if it's been served yet. If it hasn't, it'll be served shortly. Or maybe with a summary suspension order if that's what the members do today. The revocation proceeding charges the licensee with executive order violations on all of the dates that I mentioned, as well as additional other charges, including failing to comply with stipulations regarding music, pre-mixing, books and records, unauthorized bar, sustained pattern of noise and disorder, focal point for police attention. That in combination with the other NOP that was served on the earlier case, by the way. So, bear with me. I don't really know what to say other than the fact that this is a licensee who doesn't need warnings to know that he's violating the law when he sees 50, 100 people standing outside of his location time after time. He can't serve and continue to serve under those circumstances if he can't control the crowd. The Executive Order 202.43 could not be clearer on this point. That is the executive order that requires somebody to police up to 100 feet outside of their location the conduct of people who might be drinking the alcohol that's being served. It says, and I'm quoting, "If unable to comply, the serving business must discontinue such sales service of alcoholic beverages unless and until such executive orders, regulations, laws, ordinances, DOH guidance, and SLA guidance can be fully observed. That's right, Mr. Sugarman. You can stop serving. That stops the problem. You can turn off your music. This is not about somebody really trying to comply with the law. It's somebody claiming that he does not have to comply with the law. Under these circumstances, this place is a serious hazard. His attitude is a problem. It is people like him who are entrusted with liquor licenses that if they don't comply with the law will cause New York's numbers to spike like the rest of the country and put people's lives at risk. Mr. Sugarman cannot be trusted to follow the law. There is an imminent risk to public health, safety, and welfare if his license stays in place. And that, for all those reasons, Counsel's office asks the members to enter an emergency summary suspension order for the White Horse Tavern.
And Commissioner Fan, any questions?
Yes, thank you for that, Counsel. I just have a quick question. After he set up the bar on the sidewalk and he was told that he can't have the bar, does that mean, did he take that away?
That's not what the records show. He continued to have the bar on the sidewalk. Now, there is, based on what we know, and those are based on the police reports that we have that we obtained after we had done some of our own investigation. I do not know whether that stand-up bar is still outside. I do know that it was at times outside when it could not be, and that there were also seats and tables outside when outside service was still prohibited.
Got it. And then
by the way, one thing I didn't. I'm sorry,
go ahead,
Commissioner Fan.
No.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I just wanted to also make clear on the record that we had sent color photos of the scene outside this location on multiple dates, including the July 4th pictures taken by law enforcement that universally show a bar scene, people standing shoulder to shoulder, sometimes in between tables that were set up on the platform. So in one situation, huddled under a tent on the platform, looks like dozens of people. That is the recipe for communicating this disease. And the only reason those people are there is because Mr. Sugarman continues to serve them alcohol in a stand-up bar.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay. And yeah, I was going to ask about the platform, but you, I think, already answered the question. If they were putting tables on it. And do we have a sense of how late they were staying open?
We don't, other than
at 11.
I know there are complaints well into the evening. The only police report we have of after 11 is the July 4th, the most recent report. So we know that there was at least a violation of that on that date. Just so that the members know, we do have investigators, looking at these locations all over New York City and in other parts of the state. We can't be there at all hours. And on this one, we don't happen to know how late this conduct was going on all these other occasions. So we don't have that for you. But when we were there each time, there was no question that there were significant violations.
Okay.
Commissioner Ford, any questions?
Yes, Counsel, regarding this platform, they just built it in the middle of the street. Is that my understanding? Without anyone's permission, they just built a platform in the middle of the street?
Well, the New York City expansion plans do permit licensees, if they make an application, to have a space curbside, meaning on the street but curbside, but with a lot of restrictions. It can only be 8 feet wide. It has to be 15 feet from a fire plug. It has to be 8 feet from the corner, and it can't be in any place where there's live traffic. There also has to be a barrier erected of a certain size. So it looks like what happened here is, taking the cue that he was permitted to do this, Mr. Sugarman put out a platform to take over this space and did not care that his platform was partially on the left turn lane, as people were, his location is on the corner. As you may know, in New York City, there are now specially designed left turn lanes in certain areas that are in between parking. And this one was covering in part that place, a dangerous condition that New York's own guidelines, New York City's own guidelines, were designed to prevent. That didn't seem to bother him.
Okay. You said here that council was checking to see whether White Horse Tavern complied with the NYC application process for outside service currently being conducted.
Yes, they did. They did put in an application. We have a record that they applied. But all we know from that application is the square footage they asked for. It would have been an even bigger problem if they hadn't even applied. They did apply, but then the space they took over in violation of the very plan that they were applying for.
Do we know if it was approved, not just applied for, but approved?
It is automatically approved if you check the right boxes, and that's why we have it. So I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know that a human being from the Department of Transportation looks at every one of these. I suspect they do not.
Okay. All right, I'm good. Thank you.
Chairman Bradley, any questions?
Yeah, just a couple. So, is it fair? Did he have tables outside his establishment during phase one?
It looks like he had a few. Yes, a table and some chairs.
Basically, encouraging people to stay.
Encouraging people to stay, and if the SLA had been there at that time, I'm sure. I suspect that they would have been charged for that immediately. We learned about this from NYPD records.
So this
later.
This has been going on weeks. It's not. We're not talking about isolated incidents here. We're talking about a significant pattern of refusal to abide by the executive orders and our guidance.
Correct.
I'm done.
All right then, Commissioner Fan, you ready to vote?
Yes. Mr. Sugarman has been around for a long time and certainly has enough experience to know that moving a bar onto the sidewalk and building a platform in the traffic turning lane and putting speakers outside and doing all of these things to attract the crowds during the COVID pandemic is against the law. He really should know better. I vote to summarily suspend the license for the White Horse Tavern because of the violation of the governor's executive orders and pose serious hazard and imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare.
Commissioner Ford.
It's obvious Mr. Sugarman can't control his licensed premises. He even said, "What am I supposed to do? I can't control them." Well, if you can't, and you being the licensee, then I would ask, who can? Whose responsibility is it if it's not yours? So, of course, he knows he has to. He has no adverse history. He's an experienced LP, so it really surprises me that he is so wrong here and so unwilling, it seems, to change his behavior and modify his method of operation here. So many charges here were while the city was still in phase one even. So I just think that without a doubt, he has no intention of complying. Again, as I've said before, the police have expressed infinite patience with him and tried to give him every benefit of the doubt, but obviously he doesn't intend to comply. So I vote to summarily suspend the White Horse Tavern.
Chairman Bradley.
I vote to summarily suspend as well. Here we have an experienced licensee who should be setting an example for other licensees and following our guidance and doing everything he can to make sure that things are implemented to make sure that he doesn't violate the guidance that we put out there in the executive orders. And instead, the NYPD and the SLA were forced to warn him 5 times to comply. He made no efforts to comply, showed a complete disregard for the health, safety, and welfare of his customers and the public at large. Clearly, he's not taking the executive orders seriously or the threat of the COVID virus returning seriously, so he shouldn't be permitted to operate.
All right, then the next item is 787F regarding Lebanon Valley Concessionaires, Columbia SL 2004653. This is a request to revisit a summary order of suspension that was issued on Friday.
Yes. I'm sorry, Tom. I zoned out for a second. Which one do you have first? The Liberty
Lebanon Valley.
Lebanon Valley. Okay. Members, as you know, last Friday, based on unwithdrawn threats to hold a public event at the racetrack, Lebanon Valley, the licensee Lebanon Valley, allowing customers to attend in direct violation of the executive order prohibiting that, the members voted to summarily suspend the license. After that vote took place, there was some difficulty serving the order, but it appears that the action that the board took caused the licensee to cancel the event. That is the information we had, and the licensee's attorney contacted me and asked me what needed to be done to deal with the suspension and whether the suspension could be lifted. And I informed him that it would be helpful if his client could confirm in writing, in an affidavit, that he did not hold the event, just so that we had that for the record. He said he would do that. So he even prepared a draft affidavit and said, would this be sufficient? I said it would be sufficient. He said he would overnight it. I said, please just make a copy of it and send it to me, given the timing. Moral of the story is I do not have it yet. But more happened since then. I sent the members an email exchange that I had with the licensee's attorney, Mr. McGuire, where I told him that I had just learned that his client called the SLA about plans to race cars at his location and allow customers in for free. He also mentioned that his attorney is telling him about the court's decision and that what he is trying to do is fine. The court's decision he was referencing was the matter we discussed last Friday, in my view, ridiculous position that a court order relating to religious services somehow applied to this licensee. In response to my email to Mr. McGuire saying, this is about to be heard and it looks like your client is planning to do it again, but instead of having customers pay, violate the order by having them come in for free. And for free, arguably encouraging even more people to congregate illegally in violation of the executive order. And I suggested to Mr. McGuire that if his client wanted to convince the members that there was no continuing imminent risk, that I would get some written statement that he agrees, that his client now agrees that he can't even open and have people come in for free. And the response I got from Mr. McGuire was, and it's in the email exchange I gave you, Gary, we did discuss that, and I advised him that I didn't believe admission price made any difference. I will call him right now. Thanks, by the way, the affidavit went out. You will have it tomorrow by noon. Well, it's tomorrow by noon. Today by noon, I did not have it. So, but what Mr. McGuire admitted is that his client is not even following his own advice as to whether or not he can operate this way. We do not know that he has an event planned. What I do know is that I asked for cooperation that I did not receive from the licensee. And while I had expected to ask the members, based on the representation that there was no event, to withdraw the suspension, I now do not know whether that is something the members would want to do. It's possible that there is still a risk that he will operate in violation of the law, and I suppose what we could do is we could vote on this reconsideration now, or we could set it over for, we have a board meeting next Wednesday, and maybe between now and then, Mr. McGuire or his client will get us the information we need to have some level of confidence that that as soon as this suspension is lifted, we're not going to be back in the same place we were on Friday afternoon.
So here, I'm not comfortable leaving it in myself. I don't know how the other commissioners feel, but given that the event did not occur, and yes, he has asked questions, but you even acknowledge that nothing appears planned. I think it's in our best interest to lift it at this time. And, you know, it's unfortunate we have to go so far in order to get our own licensees to comply with laws, when the laws were actually put in place to protect their customers and their employees. But since no law was actually broken because of the action we took, I think that we probably need to lift it. And then if something is planned or goes forward, we might need to do it again. That's just my feeling. You can still pursue that affidavit, and I think I would like to see it because it would give everybody a sense of security if we did have it. Otherwise, we are going to have to keep a close eye on this place because it's obvious that this guy just does not get it. But I'm going to vote to lift the summary suspension.
Commissioner Fan?
Yes, I agree with the chairman. It looks like their event was canceled on July 4, and what's coming up on July 11, it's being broadcasted on TV. So right now I can't tell if they're actually going to have an event with free customers coming in. So I'll vote to lift the summary suspension.
Commissioner Ford?
I will as well. It seems like we got their attention and they didn't go through with it as far as we know, and the council is still in the process of confirming. Maybe we could also check with local authorities to see if anything took place. They might know as well. But I'm all for lifting this one and the other one too. Is that on for us to consider today too?
We're going to go.
Yeah, that's coming next.
So,
Okay, yes. I'm
go ahead.
So, yes, I'll just finish up with this one. Yes, I definitely vote wholeheartedly to lift this suspension at this point, since they didn't do anything.
And I think, Council, that you can probably make clear, you know, my sons are big fans of NASCAR, who is losing hundreds of millions of dollars every week because they don't have fans. And if this guy can't get the picture that there should not be fans at a stock car race, I don't know how far more we have to go to convince him. If NASCAR could have fans, they would have fans, and they have decided, based on where they are, that they're not going to have fans for safety reasons, and obviously the state of New York has made it law that you're not allowed to have fans. So, you know, this guy's jeopardizing not just his license, but the public's health as well if he goes forward with whatever he's talking about.
All right,
I will convey that. Chairman. You are correct, and the same position has been taken by every other major sport, Broadway, concerts. No one is doing this. He's the only one that wants to in this environment. Well, that tried to.
All right, then the next item is 787G regarding Rensselaer RW 2186024, Liberty Ridge Farm, LLC.
This is the other suspension from Friday, Liberty Ridge Farm. I asked Liberty Ridge's lawyer for the same information, that to have the licensee itself send us an affidavit. I agreed that it would be okay if I got a writing, and then I ended up with an email. But the email, which I've passed along to the members, confirms that the event did not take place. I am troubled by the way that the email was written, because it appeared, the licensee appeared to be saying as soon as they learned that there was a fireworks prohibition, they canceled their event. That is not at all what happened. They were planning to have 600 to 1,200 people to watch live music under a tent, and the fireworks piece was a piece of it. But there's no excuse for them planning this event and pretending to not know that it was a violation. So while I am troubled that this licensee is still pretending that they were interested in complying and wasn't forced to not comply by the action we took on Friday for the same reasons as the other case, since there was no actual violation of the law and we do not see an imminent threat right now, the board is being asked to reconsider and withdraw the suspension for Liberty Ridge.
And Commissioner Fan?
Yes, I will vote to lift the summer suspension.
Commissioner Ford?
Is this a restaurant one?
Same here. I vote to lift it.
Chairman Bradley?
Yeah, I vote to lift it as well. But also make clear, Gary, to the lawyer that obviously the concert was also a problem, not just the fireworks.
That's already taken place.
All right, thanks.
All right, Chairman, I have nothing else. Do you have anything else?
Nope.
And with that, then, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, members.